بكم في حلقة جديدة من استوديو كوب. نستضيف اليوم السيد أنتوني ميلر، منسق مبادرة الأمم المتحدة لأسواق الأوراق المالية المستدامة ومنسق مبادرة الأمم المتحدة للتجارة والتنمية الأونت. أهلا بك سيد أنتوني ميلر. Welcome Mr. Antonio Miller with us with the Studio Cop. In this episode we are discussing a very crucial, important matters regarding the efforts in climate change in Cop28. First of all, let me ask you to explain to our audience in the simple terms, if possible, please, about what is sustainable financing means and how it differs from the conventional finance.
Sure. Thank you very much, Cesar. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Finance, of course, is a big area. And there's a lot of different types of finance. There's bank finance. There's the kind of finance you find in capital markets. You have bonds, you have equities, you have derivatives. In a short, simple way, sustainable finance is integrating sustainability factors into any of these kind of financial instruments or investment decision making. And when I say sustainability factors, we're here at Cop28. Specifically, we're thinking about climate factors. So you can think about climate risk, particularly for equities. If you think about certain industries, what their emissions are and where they're going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this is an important issue. But also new products. We've had discussions today around carbon markets, voluntary carbon markets, compliance carbon markets. These are new instruments. Bond markets, green bonds. You also have green sukuks, which are very popular in this part of the world. So there's a number of different products. The key thing that separates it from the, let's say, traditional financial market is the integration of these sustainability factors like climate.
Also, what is the importance in achieving the climate and sustainable development goals?
Well, the importance really is human survival. So when we think about climate, this is the greatest challenge of humanity. It is the greatest challenge of the 21st century. We must all band together around the world to combat climate change, to alter our societies so that we get to a point where we have net zero emissions across the economies. Beyond that, of course, there are the Sustainable Development Goals that cover a number of other factors. Climate is critical for our survival, but there are a lot of other things that we must also address in the Sustainable Development Goals: poverty alleviation, gender equality, health and welfare, and so on.
Mr. Anthony, once you said that if you are not investing in Africa, you are not investing in sustainable development. Can you please clarify your statement?
Well, what I meant by that is, of course, the majority of least developed countries in the world are located in the continent of Africa. Poverty alleviation is a critical component of sustainable development. One of the challenges with sustainable finance is that too much of this money is trapped going in circles inside the deep pools of capital, for example, in North America or in Europe. And we need to build more pipelines of money going from the deep pools of capital, the high income markets, into lower income markets to finance their sustainable development. And of course, in the context of COP, that also means climate finance to build the kind of infrastructure so that they have clean energy, as well as the ability to adapt to a changing environment.
Mr. Anthony, do you have any idea about how much money does the world need annually to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals?
I can quote you a number, but it's so big the brain has trouble processing it. We're talking trillions of dollars. This is something that UNCTAD does track in their SDG investment monitor, and it is an order of magnitude of trillions and trillions of dollars, and we are not anywhere close to where we need to be. So we need a big step change to sort of double at least the scale of what we're doing now.
Can you address the lack of funding for the adoption projects in developing countries, and do you have a role in this?
Well, if you're talking about adaptation versus mitigation, of course, mitigation, the reduction of emissions, is really first and foremost on a lot of people's minds when they think about climate. When you're in a hole, the first thing you need to do is stop digging. So the first thing we need to do to combat climate is eliminate the harmful emissions that all of our economies are producing to get to net zero economies. So that is where a lot of the finance is primarily going. But you're absolutely right to focus also on adaptation. Adaptation is critical because even if we zero out emissions today, we're already over 1 degree change. That has impacts. We see that around us, the world today, melting ice caps. disruption to weather patterns. This has impacts on livestock, on farming, farm production, people's livelihoods, extreme weather events. So there is a need for more finance for adaptation to help people to survive the kinds of changes that we've already baked into the climate.
What is the strategy being discussed to enhance transparency and accountability in the location and utilization of climate finance?
One of the key developments we've seen since the last COP is the development of a new global standard on climate reporting. And this is coming from the IFRS Foundation, International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation, which produces the financial reporting standards that all companies around the world use. Mm-hmm. And they are now producing a standard on climate disclosure. So we have them at our event tomorrow. We are launching training programs, working with stock exchanges all around the world to educate markets on how to implement these standards. This is critical so that investors and other market participants, as well as companies themselves, can make better decisions about their investments. And when I say the investments, it's the investments of the investors in the company, but also the company itself, how it's deploying its capital. We should be very clear about the challenge in front of us. This is a point in history which you can think of as a great filter, and not everybody goes through the other side of that filter. You know, think about when digital photography came about. You can think about some of the biggest film companies used to buy their film in little boxes. Yeah. And, you know, imagine it's 1995 and you think, oh, that's a great company. It'll never go out of business. It'll be around forever. By the year 2005, they're all out of business. Yeah. So between now and the year 2035, are companies adapting to a net zero environment? Are companies adapting to the climate crisis and the climate challenge of the 21st century, or are they not? So this kind of information and reporting is critical for investors, but also their own internal management to say, are they going in the right direction?
The main challenges you are facing in this?
Well, I think it depends on the industry. Some industries have more challenges than other industries. Some industries are more difficult to reduce emissions. I mean, cement, steel, these are notorious industries that are working in that direction, but it's the nature of the products. How do you do that?
There's lack of collaboration, you think?
I don't think it's that. I think in some cases it's technical things. You know, cement, it's just the chemical process of producing cement produces a lot of CO2. So that's a challenge. I think a lot of other industries, it's as simple as, can you electrify everything? If you can electrify everything and you can produce that electricity from clean and renewable resources, you're going to adapt and make it through the great filter.
What's your thoughts on the launch of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed of the 30 billion of fund or climate solution? Does the fund contribute to achieving a sustainable development goals?
Right. So this is not an area that I work in directly, but what I would say is in the world...
What's your thoughts?
Sure. In the world of finance, there are multiple dimensions of finance, and there is always more resources needed. So any new funds contributed is a step in the right direction. The other thing too is we have to always be conscious of the just transition, which is a key concept that people discuss at COP, and that is that many developing countries, they did not contribute to the great pollution of our atmosphere, and yet they will carry a lot of the burden of transitioning to net zero. So they need particularly assistance to help them to transition to new clean energy sources. So any funds that can help to contribute to that just transition are also a critical part. I wish I could see the future. The only thing I can say from past COPs is we should wait until it's over, because quite often at the last hour, there are major breakthroughs. So I think people should stay tuned and see what happens at the end. But we've already seen good progress so far, and that's good to set the pace right out of the gate. So far, I think this has been a successful COP.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Miller, for joining our program, Studio Cop. ونشكر أيضا متابعينا لمتابعتكم هذه الحلقة من استوديو كوب، وعلى أمل اللقاء بحلقة جديدة في الأيام المقبلة. شكرا جزيلا لكم.